She let him sit at her table in a crowded cafe. She had no idea he was a millionaire, or that he was a single father. A cold gray afternoon cloaked New York City in a dull melancholy. Rain had come and gone, leaving the sidewalk slick and shimmering under the pale orange of late daylight. Street lamps flickered on ahead of schedule, casting long reflections in puddles as the city pulsed forward in a weary rhythm. Nestled on a bustling corner near Union Square, a cozy cafe named Rust and Rose offered a warm escape from the cold. Its fogged windows glowed faintly, gold against the gray, flickering with the movement of candles on tables. Inside, the space was packed, shoulder to shoulder with students, typing frantically, business people on late Zoom calls, and couple nestled into booths. The air buzzed with overlapping conversations, the hiss of milk frothers, and the rich scent of espresso and cinnamon scones. In a back corner near the radiator, Anna sat quietly, curled over a battered sketchbook. She was in her early 20s, her blonde hair twisted into a loose knot that had mostly unraveled. Her oversized sweater had a hole in the sleeve and was 3 winters past its prime. Her jeans were frayed at the knees, her boots damp from the walk over. A single half-drunk cappuccino sat, cooling beside her, her only indulgence in days. She stared at the page where she had begun sketching a window, opening onto a sky filled with light. Drawing was the only thing that still made sense. The bills were overdue. The attic apartment in Brooklyn was too cold. And since her last client ghosted her without payment, she had been living mostly on oatmeal and the occasional toast from the cafe staff who pitied her. But in that moment her hand moved, steadily building something she hoped might outlast the storm. Then the door chimed. A man stepped inside, tall and damp. From the drizzle, his dark hair tousled from the wind. Beside him stood a little girl, maybe 5, small and curly-haired, her hands pressed tight to her ears. She flinched at the noise. Her eyes darted around in panic. The man walked quickly to the counter. "Excuse me," he said to the barista, his voice low but clear. "Is there any table open? My daughter, she's getting overwhelmed." The barista offered a sympathetic shake of the head. "Sorry, not a seat left. We're slammed." The girl trembled. Her eyes began to glisten. Anna had been watching quietly. She closed her sketchbook, took a breath, then raised her hand. "You can sit here," she said gently. "There's room." The man turned toward her. Surprise flickered across his face. "Are you sure?" Anna nodded. "Absolutely. She looks like she needs somewhere calm." He hesitated, then led his daughter to the open chairs. The girl curled into his side, still sniffling. Her hands stayed clenched in her coat sleeves. Anna reached into her canvas tote and pulled out a box of crayons, old, worn, with its label peeling off. She placed it gently on the table. "Would you like to draw something?" she asked the girl. "I always carry colors with me." The little one looked at her uncertainly. Then, with a slow nod, she reached out. Anna smiled and handed her a page from her sketchbook. "What do you like to draw most?" she asked, softly. The girl whispered, "Butterflies." Anna lit up. "Then let's make the prettiest butterfly in the whole cafe." She slipped a yellow crayon into the girl's hand. The child hesitated, then leaned forward, her tongue poking from the corner of her mouth as she pressed color to paper. Her hands still shook, but a quiet joy emerged in the movement. Jack, though Anna didn't yet know his name, watched silently, his eyes softening as he watched his daughter calm. His own shoulders began to lower from their protective stiffness. He exhaled quietly. A woman at the next table glanced over, wrinkling her nose. "Really?" she said. "But you're just going to let some stranger sit here?" Anna kept her tone even. "Sometimes people don't need space. They need kindness." The woman rolled her eyes and turned away. The little girl giggled, a quiet, musical sound. Anna beamed. Jack, still silent, pulled out his phone and discreetly snapped a picture not to share but to keep. The image, a butterfly half-formed. On paper, a child leaning into color, and a young woman with tired eyes and a healing heart offering joy without condition. Their eyes met. In his gaze, Anna saw something unspoken. Gratitude, maybe wonder, certainly depth. She gave a small nod, her cheeks warming, and looked back down at the butterfly. They continued in silence, a rhythm forming between them. Draw, smile, breathe. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sky was still overcast, but a soft orange halo had begun to form over the skyline. In the crowded blur of the cafe's noise, one quiet table had found its own world. A butterfly took shape in crayon, wings. A child began to hum, and a story had just begun. The rain had stopped, but the wind had picked up. As Anna stepped out of the cafe, the sharp air cut through her thin coat like needles. The sidewalks glistened, lit only by the occasional flicker of street lamps. Her boots splashed quietly through shallow puddles, her mind still lingering on the girl with the butterfly and the man with the kind eyes. She pulled her coat tighter and walked faster. Then came the sound of footsteps behind her. Anna's heart skipped. She turned her head slightly, pretending to glance at the shop windows. There was no one close, but the echo of hurried steps persisted, growing louder. Her breath quickened. She picked up her pace. So did the steps behind her. A cold wave of fear surged through her chest. Her hand gripped the strap of her bag, her knuckles white. She turned a corner, her heart hammering. She could feel it, that primal alarm, the unmistakable feeling of being followed. Without thinking, she broke into a run. She barely made it half a block before crashing into someone. Hard. "Whoa, hey," a familiar voice exclaimed as steady hands caught her shoulders. Anna looked up, gasping. It was Jack. She blinked, her heart racing, her breath fogging in the cold air. I thought someone was following me," she stammered, her voice trembling. Jack's brow furrowed as he scanned the street behind her, instinctively stepping a bit in front of her. "You're shaking," he said quietly. "Let me walk you home, just in case." She hesitated. Her walls were up. But the sincerity in his voice and the steady calm in his eyes melted a small part of her fear. She nodded slowly. All right. They walked side by side through the quiet streets, the city noise fading behind them. After a few minutes, Jack broke the silence. "You looked like you were drawing something important back there." Anna gave a small, tired laugh. "I guess it's how I stay sane. I lost my last art contract 3 months ago. Been rejected by 3 galleries, so now I just draw so I don't lose my mind." Jack glanced sideways but said nothing. He just listened. "I'm behind on rent," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "No one's buying art from someone like me, and yet I still draw. Butterflies, windows, light. I don't even know why anymore." "Because it matters," he said, simply. She looked up at him. "I've seen people give up," he added, "but you haven't. That means something." They stopped at the base of a narrow staircase leading up to a weathered building, her home. "Thank you," she said, her voice softer now, "for walking with me and for letting your daughter draw with me." "She reminded me why I started painting." Jack nodded. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small card. He held it out to her. "In case you ever need anything," he said, his tone gentle. "Even just a cup of coffee." She took the card and glanced down. Just a name, Jack, no title, no company, no phone number. She looked back up at him, confused, but he was already stepping away. "Good night, Anna," he said with a faint smile. "Take care." She stood there for a long moment, watching him disappear into the foggy night. In her hand, the nameless card felt heavier than it should have, not because of what it revealed, but because of what it didn't. And deep down, she knew this wasn't the last time their paths would cross. The week slipped by like water through Anna's fingers. She spent most of her days at her windowside desk, hunched over her sketchbook, her fingers stained with pastels and ink. Butterflies, always butterflies. They spilled across her pages like tiny, fragile prayers. But beauty could not pay the bills. The heating in her small attic apartment had started to rattle, again coughing weak warmth into the space. She bundled herself in mismatched layers, trying to focus on a new piece, but the scratch of her pencil was interrupted by a knock on the door. It was sharp, precise. She didn't need to open it to know who it was. Mrs. Brewster. Anna inhaled deeply and turned the knob. The landlady stood in the hallway, arms crossed, lips pursed into a tight line, her thin eyebrows arched in perpetual disapproval. "You know what day it is," she said, without a greeting. "I do," Anna replied, clutching the edge of the door. I need a little more time." Brewster's expression did not change. "Rent was due last Friday. I've been generous, but this isn't a charity." "I know," Anna said, quickly. "I have a gallery appointment today. If they accept my work..." Mrs. Brewster cut her off. "If? That's all I ever hear. From you? I'll give you until next Friday, but if I don't have the full amount by then, you're out. Understood?" Anna swallowed. "Understood." The door clicked shut behind the woman, and Anna leaned against it, exhaling slowly as her knees threatened to give way. Later that afternoon, she walked to the gallery, one she had visited months ago, one that had once given her hope. It was nestled between boutiques and wine bars, its white walls visible through tall glass windows. She held her sketchbook close to her chest as she stepped inside. The curator, an impeccably dressed woman with a sharp bob and heels that clicked like threats, greeted her with a glance. Anna spoke gently. "Hi, I'm Anna Rivers. I came to submit my work for consideration." "You were here before?" the curator interrupted, her eyes scanning Anna's worn jacket and scuffed shoes. "The girl with the butterflies?" Anna nodded. The woman gave a tight smile. "Look, art is for people who sell, not dreamers who scribble. Butterflies in coffee shops." Anna's lips parted, stunned by the cruelty in the woman's tone. "I'm sorry," the curator added without a hint of sincerity, "but we're not interested." She turned on her heel and walked away. Anna stood frozen for a moment, then slowly turned and walked out. Back on the street she wandered, without aim. Her feet took her past familiar blocks, past a florist, up bookstore, and then the cafe. Rustin Rose. Through the foggy window she saw the corner table where she'd met Jack and Mia. It was empty now, sunlight catching on the wood, casting shadows that looked like wings. She stopped and stared for a long time, her breath misting the glass. A quiet smile touched her lips, but her eyes told another story, one of tiredness, of edges worn thin. That night, back in her apartment, the wind howled through the cracked window. Anna sat on her bed, surrounded by sketches. She reached for her wallet and counted the bills, barely enough for groceries, let alone rent. She heard footsteps. A knock followed. Anna opened the door. Mrs. Brewster stood there again, hands on her hips. Anna didn't wait this time. "I'm working on it," she said, her voice small. "I just need one more week. Please." The landlady stared at her face unmoved. "Next Friday. Not a day more. And I won't be knocking next time. I'll be changing the locks." She turned and walked off, her heels echoing like a final warning. Anna stood there in the hallway, holding her breath. When she finally closed the door, it felt heavier than before, as if each slam of reality added another inch of weight. She looked around her tiny space, walls plastered with art, windows lined with dreams, and wondered if she would still be here to see them by the end of the week. On Monday morning, the world felt gray again, rain tapping softly on the thin glass window above Anna's bed. She sat curled in a corner, a blanket wrapped tightly around her, shoulders sipping weak instant coffee when her phone vibrated on the nightstand. It was an email from an address she did not recognize. The subject line read simply, "We saw your art." The message was short with no signature, no name. "Come by for a conversation." It listed an address, a gallery on the Upper West Side she had only ever passed by but never dared to enter. Anna stared at the screen. Her first instinct was suspicion. A prank? A mistake? She clicked the sender's info. Nothing more. She looked around her apartment. Bare walls, unfinished sketches, and eviction notice taped to the fridge. And then back at the phone. Maybe it was something. A few hours later, bundled in her least worn-out coat, she stood hesitantly in front of a glass-fronted gallery with gold-lettered signage, The Haven. Inside, the space was airy and gleaming, filled with natural light and elegant wooden frames. Her boots squeaked slightly on the polished floor as she entered. The receptionist, a young woman with a kind smile and a sharp blazer, stood as she approached. "Anna Rivers?" Anna blinked. "Yes, we've been expecting you." "Right this way," expecting her. Anna followed the woman down a tall, quiet hallway lined with soft lighting and muted artwork. At the end of the corridor was a room with double glass doors. The receptionist opened them gently. "Please," she said, gesturing inside. Anna stepped in and froze. There, standing with his hands in his pockets and a soft smile on his face, was Jack. He wasn't in the cafe sweater and jeans she remembered. Today, he wore a navy blazer over a crisp shirt, the sleeves rolled casually at the cuffs. Behind him, the gallery wall was lined with sketches of butterflies. Different styles, different mediums, some bold and colorful, others delicate and haunting. They were hers. Her butterflies. She turned to him, stunned. "You?" Jack nodded, stepping closer. "I fund exhibitions," he said calmly. "Under a foundation I manage for emerging artists. I saw what you drew. I saw how you gave a frightened little girl colors. Before you asked any questions." He gestured toward the art behind him. "I had the cafe retrieve what you left on the table. I asked them to watch for you in case you ever came back. I hoped you would." Anna's voice was barely a whisper. "You're the one who emailed me?" He nodded. "I wanted you to come without expectation, without fear, just curiosity." She looked again at the sketches. Her hands trembled. "Why me?" Jack's eyes were kind, unwavering. "Because your art speaks," he said. "It heals. Like you did for Mia. You saw a child in distress and offered crayons, not questions. The world needs more of that." Anna felt the breath catch in her chest. He continued, his voice gentle. "I want to sponsor your first solo show. Full backing, venue, materials, everything. No strings. Just your work. Just you." Tears welled in her eyes, unexpected and overwhelming. "Jack, I'm not anyone. I've been turned away from every gallery I've tried. I can't even pay rent next week." "Then let's change that," he said simply. He stepped forward and handed her a small folder. Inside was a contract, short, clear and fair. She looked up at him, her voice shaking. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he replied. Anna nodded, swallowing hard. Then almost shyly she said, "You never told me your last name." Jack chuckled softly. "Chambers." Her eyes widened. That name? She'd seen it in articles on gallery plaques. Jack Chambers, founder of the Chambers Arts Foundation, a man who once paid a 6-figure sum to preserve a street artist's mural in Brooklyn. She covered her mouth with her hand. "You're that Jack?" He smiled, modestly. "Still just me as dad." And, he added softer now, maybe someone who believes in butterflies. The days leading up to the exhibit blurred into long hours of sketching, painting, wiping tears, and restarting again. Anna poured herself into the canvases as though every emotion she had bottled up for years now, demanded to be seen. Her small studio smelled of turpentine and old coffee. She worked barefoot, her clothes smeared with streaks of cobalt and ochre. Each canvas became a confession, a release. Her butterflies no longer floated, timidly in corners. They soared, wings wide across vast, bright skies. Jack visited often. He never stayed too long, never hovered. He would bring her coffee from the cafe and sit quietly watching her work, sometimes offering a smile, sometimes just his presence. One afternoon, as gray clouds rolled in and rain began to lash the windows, Anna stepped outside to bring in her drying sketches. But a gust of wind caught one off, the line, a delicate watercolor, still damp, and sent it tumbling into the puddles. She cried out, chasing it. But by the time she reached it, the edges were already darkening with water. Jack appeared beside her almost instantly. He did not say a word. Instead, he removed the scarf from around his neck, a deep green wool that still held his warmth, and gently dabbed the water off the page. His hands were slow, careful, reverent, like he was tending to something sacred. Anna watched, her heart full and her throat tight. She whispered, "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he said simply. It should have been enough, this quiet rhythm they had found. But not everyone celebrated her rising. The week of the exhibit, whispers began to circulate online. An anonymous account from a gallery she'd once begged for an internship had posted a scathing message. "From barista to exhibit, darling, overnight. All it takes is a sob. Story and the right man to believe." Anna froze when she read it. Then more followed. Claims that she had played the victim, used her poverty as a performance, that she had manipulated her way into success. It felt like someone had reached inside her chest and squeezed her hard until it cracked. That night she sat on the cold floor of her studio, her hands stained with paint, her breath shallow. She whispered to herself, "Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong in any gallery. Maybe this was just a mistake." The knock came, softly. Jack stepped inside without speaking. He didn't ask what happened. He had already seen the post. He knelt beside her and, without saying a word, handed her a folded piece of paper. It was a letter, written in a child's uneven scroll. "Thank you for the butterflies. They helped me sleep again. Mia." Anna clutched the letter to her chest. Then Jack sat beside her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Let them say what they want, Anna," he said, gently. "The truth does not need to shout. It just needs to stand." He looked into her eyes, steady and calm. "And you stood for kindness when no one was watching. That's a light no rumor can ever dim." Tears spilled down her cheeks. But this time she let them fall. Not from defeat, but from knowing someone had seen her, truly seen her, and still believed. The evening of the exhibition was quiet perfection. Guests flowed through the gallery's pristine space, its walls dressed in creamy white, gentle spotlights, tracing Anna's paintings with golden halos. Bottles of champagne shimmered on sleek tables at the edges of the room. But the heart of the event was the art everywhere. Anna's butterflies, each stroke of color and tremor of line, hovered between wonder and fragility. Anna, in a simple navy dress and ankle boots, stood at the center of it all. She spoke softly to visitors, her voice firm yet warm. She described how each butterfly began as a memory of hope, how art had become her lifeline. Over her shoulder she could feel the gaze of Jack standing a few paces back. He wore a charcoal suit and an open white shirt. His eyes were bright, his expression a mixture of pride and protection. Hours passed in a blur of conversation and admiration. As the gathering thinned, Anna felt a rush of gratitude and relief. She wasn't alone anymore. Then, just as Anna took a moment to breathe, the gallery doors opened, quietly. And there she was. Mia, glowing in a simple white dress that shimmered like moonlight. In her small hand, she carried her battered box of crayons, the one Anna had given her weeks ago. Anna's breath stalled. The gallery seemed to hush. Mia wove through the crowd and approached her. She stared at Anna with wide eyes, then wrapped her arms around her waist. "Can I draw another butterfly next to yours?" she asked, her voice small but steady. Anna knelt, tears glimmering. She nodded, her voice catching. "Yes, darling." "Right here." She guided Mia to a small easel fitted beside one of her larger canvases, a canvas of layered blues and golds. "Oh, Tandi, butterfly emerging from darkness." Anna stepped back and offered the child a pink crayon. Mia crouched on a stool. Gently, she began to draw. Soft lines curved and connected, until a small, radiant butterfly appeared beside Anna's own creation. A hush fell over the remaining guests. An unspoken moment of beauty, of continuity. Jack watched from across the room. His chest rose and fell slowly, his gaze fixed. Pride welled in him, but so did joy and relief. He stepped forward, careful not to disturb the scene. He offered Anna his hand, a quiet invitation to join him. She took it after a heartbeat, warmth spreading through her fingers. Anna and Jack walked together, eyes fixed on Mia's drawing, their hearts tethered by hope. Later, after the crowd had gone and only soft music hummed through the halls, Jack led Anna back to where her paintings hung. He turned to her, his voice low but certain. "You gave me a hope," he said. "You gave all of us a reason to see beauty again." Anna swallowed. "I didn't do this alone." He smiled, reaching into his pocket. A small velvet box appeared, and he opened it to reveal a delicate necklace, a tiny silver butterfly, suspended in mid-flight. "I want this to remind you," he said, placing it around her neck, "that your art will always inspire. But more than that, that kindness changes lives." Anna's fingers touched the pendant, her eyes glistening with tears of gratitude. Jack continued softly, "I love you, Anna. Not for the pictures, but for the courage behind them." She leaned into him, her heart full. Below them, on the walls and on the tiny canvas, butterflies fluttered on, their wings now painting a new story. A story of healing, of family, of love. The days after the exhibition moved, in quiet, gentle rhythms. Anna found herself spending more time with Jack and Mia. What began as casual coffees and strolls became a routine. Saturday mornings were filled with finger painting. Weekday evenings were filled with shared tea and laughter. Jack often stopped by her studio with her favorite croissant, while Anna slipped whimsical sketches into Mia's bedtime books. Strangers sometimes mistook them for a family. One rainy afternoon, Jack suggested they stop by a quiet Riverside cafe. Inside, the lights were dim, the windows foggy. Jazz played low in the background as they settled into a corner booth. Anna, wrapped in her old sweater, took the window seat. Mia sat between them, pink-cheeked and warm. Condensation fogged the glass, and Jack handed Mia a napkin. She giggled, then pulled out a marker from Anna's tote. With careful strokes, she drew butterflies, a little house, and then spontaneously a heart. Inside it, in crooked letters, she wrote, "Anna plus Daddy." Anna's breath caught mid-sip. Her cheeks flushed. Jack saw it too and chuckled, softly. "She might be on to something," he said, his voice light. Mia looked up proudly. "It's your heart family, like in the book. People who belong together even if they didn't start that way." Anna felt a tremble in her chest. Joy and fear tangled together. Later that evening, after Mia had fallen asleep in the car and Jack had driven them home, he walked Anna to her stoop. Rain misted gently around them. Anna's voice was small. "Sometimes I feel like this is too good. Like if I breathe too hard, it might vanish." Jack stepped closer. "You think this is a dream?" She nodded. "I lost everything once. When the gallery turned me down, when I couldn't pay rent. I started thinking maybe I wasn't meant for anything lasting, not love, not even art. He took her, hand gently. Anna, what you gave Mia that day in the cafe wasn't just crayons. You gave her calm when I couldn't. You gave her color when everything felt gray. He paused, his voice soft but sure. You saved her. That doesn't disappear. Her eyes welled. But I'm still scared. Then be scared, Jack said, his grip firm. But be scared with me, because I'm not going anywhere. She looked up, searching his face for doubt. There was none, only steady warmth. I want this, she whispered, but I don't know how to be someone's home. You already are, he said, gently. To her and to me, he leaned in and kissed her, quiet and certain. A promise, not a question. Back inside the cafe, the heart Mia had drawn still faintly clung to the window. Rain blurred its edges, but the mark remained, just like them. And for the first time in years, Anna let herself believe in something lasting, something painted in rain and love. A year had passed, and the seasons of Anna's life had changed completely. She now stood at the front of a sunlit classroom in a community center nestled in Brooklyn. The walls were splashed with murals and drying paper butterflies, and the floor was speckled with dots of paint. Laughter echoed through the space. A chorus of children gathered around wooden tables, their hands sticky with glue and joy. Anna's heart felt fuller than she'd ever known. Once a week, she hosted a free art class for underprivileged kids. Some were dealing with anxiety, others from broken homes, all of them searching for expression. She guided their hands, taught them color theory and imagination. But more importantly, she taught them safety, kindness, and the courage to create. She was now the artistic director of a nonprofit arts foundation for children funded entirely by Jack's charitable wing. But more than the job, more than the studio and the respect, what Anna cherished most were the two people who made her life complete, Jack and Mia. They were no longer visitors in her world. They were her world. That afternoon, the class was winding down when Mia entered the room, dressed in her favorite purple overalls, her cheeks flushed with excitement. She carried a medium-sized picture frame wrapped in brown paper and tied with a string. Anna smiled and knelt down. What do you have there, love? Mia handed her the frame with wide eyes. Open it. Anna untied the string and flipped the frame. Inside was a blank white canvas, completely untouched. Confused, she turned it over again. On the back, in Jack's handwriting, were the words, "Will you be our forever art?" Anna blinked, her breath catching. When she looked up, Jack was already stepping forward through the classroom door. Dressed simply in a blue shirt and slacks, he was holding a small velvet box in his hand. He came to her slowly, then knelt beside Mia, the box held gently between his fingers. You healed her, Anna, he said, his voice rich with emotion. You healed me. You showed us how to color outside the lines and still find beauty. You gave us a story when we didn't know how to begin a new one. He opened the box, revealing a delicate ring. Its center, a small sapphire framed in soft, swirling gold. Simple, elegant, like her. Will you paint this life with us? He asked. Forever? Anna could hardly speak. The room faded around her, the children watching quietly, sunlight streaming through the window, the sound of her own heartbeat filling her ears. She dropped to her knees, tears brimming. Yes, she whispered 1,000 times. Yes, Mia squealed, and wrapped her arms around them, both. Jack pulled them into a tight embrace, their laughter and tears mingling in the afternoon light. Later that evening, after the center had closed and the classroom was quiet, Anna stood before the largest canvas she had ever owned. She picked up her paintbrush and began a new painting, not of butterflies, but of something even more precious. A little girl with curly hair, her eyes full of wonder. A tall man, strong and soft, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. and beside them, a woman with golden hair, her hand outstretched, holding a paintbrush. Not to draw what had been, but to shape what could be. A family. And underneath, in Anna's careful script, she wrote the title, The Painting That Never Dries, because love, like art, is never truly finished. It grows. It softens. It changes. And it lives on in every single brushstroke of kindness. Kindness is never just a moment. It becomes a masterpiece. If this story moved your heart, even just a little, imagine how many more are waiting to be discovered. At Soul Stirring Stories, we believe in the power of small kindnesses, quiet courage, and the moments that rewrite lives. If you found hope in Anna's journey and felt the warmth of a love painted in silence and color, there is so much more to come. Subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories now. Join a community that celebrates resilience, compassion, and the beauty of the human spirit. New heartwarming tales are shared each week, crafted to touch your soul and remind you that even the smallest act of kindness can become someone's masterpiece. Hit that subscribe button and let Yiddy G us keep your heart inspired.